database management systems today. You can see the slides. So these are the contents that we'll cover. What is a traditional filing system? What were its demerits? How did database management system remove these demerits? What is the concept of a data warehouse? Data mining. What are the data mining tasks and its application? And text mining and web mining. So these are the contents that we will try to cover up today. So first we move to discuss what are the demerits of a filing system. The demerits of a filing system are listed below: data duplication, no simultaneous updation, no ad hoc reporting, program data dependence, lack of data sharing, poor security and integrity of data. Now let's take the first one, data duplication. Now each department or function, whether it's a personal function or a HR function or a production function, or let's say in a bank, the different departments, those who are dealing with loan, those who are dealing with say savings account, opening savings account. So these could be the different processes or the different functions in an organization. So each department or each function, they individually collect and compile data. So the same data get collated more than once. Like we're taking the instance of a bank, the savings account clerk, he opens an account for a customer who wants to open a savings account. So he writes the details of the customer, like customer name, customer address, his age, where he's working, his residential address, etc. All the details of the customer listed there. Now, he is a customer for say another. So then he goes to a different section, and that section again repeats the same thing. He opens an account, a fixed deposit account for the same customer, and his same name, address, and details of the customer get listed again. So this is what happens in a traditional filing system. So each section or each department would record the same piece of information, the same data element, in his own way, in his own file. So each of them would be maintaining data separately. They would be maintaining data separately. So that is why duplication takes place. Each data or function individually collect data. So the same data get collected more than once. In a bank, savings account collects record of customer. Fixed deposit account collects data of the same customer. In his own way, the same name, the address, age is written once again. So data duplication takes place. No simultaneous updation. Now, if this customer is residing, say, in Jamia Urdu, and he changes his residence and he starts staying in Center Point, so he gives an application of the same, of a change of address. So the savings account clerk might incorporate the change on the very same day in his file, while the fixed deposit clerk, he might do so maybe 2 months later or 3 days later. In between, so the change of address of a customer takes place, and one department might incorporate the change on the same day, while the other department might incorporate the change on some other day. So the same record gets counted twice. They're treated as two different persons. Say, for instance, I record the change today being 26th of April, and somebody records the change in August. So sometime in between, say 1st of June or 1st of July, if you're compiling records of customers, these two customers which appear as different customers, and he would be counted twice because they show a different details. So there is no simultaneous updation, like you have updated it once and the change gets incorporated everywhere. So if he has a loan account, he has a fixed deposit account, savings account, whatever the case might be, the change incorporated once is seen or it gets updated everywhere. This does not take place in a traditional filing system because each of them is recording data separately. Now, no ad hoc reporting. Now, if I want to generate schedule reports, how many customers are there in Jamia Urdu, I'm able to do so. How many customers are there who fall within this age bracket, say 30 to 40, I'm able to do so. But if I'm asked to find those customers who are also having a fixed deposit account, who also are operating a loan account, this is means information which is held in 3 different files. This cannot be done in a traditional file system. So this is what we mean by no ad hoc query. So if it is general reports, schedule reports, how many customers are there? Fine, I'm able to do so. But then if it is a report which has to be generated by seeking information from different files, it will not be able to do so. So routine schedule reports can be generated, but no ad hoc reporting can be done as records are not related. In a bank, customers who have savings account and who are also operating a fixed deposit account and a loan account, say vehicle loan account, it will not be able to elicit, it will not be able to answer to such ad hoc queries. Now take in case of a library, you students are all members. So it will be able to generate a schedule report, how many members are there. Fine, so it will be able to generate all your details, your name, your hostel, your hall of residence, your age, course you're doing, fine. But then if I have 7 days for which you are scheduled to keep, you are allowed to keep, it will not be able to generate such a report. So members who have a fine due, so it will not be able to do so. So separate list might be there of all the members who are members, your name, your enrollment number, your hall of residence, the course you're undergoing, etc. But then these members who have a certain fine due to them, you will not be able to do so because each of the file is being maintained separately. So it will be able to generate routine schedule reports, but it will not be able to answer to ad hoc query. Now, program data dependence. Now, since each of them are keeping separate files, separate record, each of them define their data element separately. So there is tight dependence upon data and program required to run that data. So for every program, say list of members of a library. So I define the enrollment number, I define the name, I define the age, I define the hall of residence. So these are data elements, okay? The name, the enrollment number, hall of residence, your age, your course, they become the data elements. And I write the program to generate a list of members. So then it will seek this file, this program will seek data from these data definition. Any change in data means all the programs which is dependent on this data, they have to be, those data elements need to be changed. So there is tight dependence on data and program. So every program run, data is being defined. So there is tight dependence on data and program required to update and maintain that file. Any change in data means change needed in all the programs that access this data. And therefore, there is lack of data sharing. Each different department is defining data differently. Like when I'm making the library file, I might be defining name as PICX30. Means I'm saying name and I'm giving allocating 30 spaces to it. So I will write Salma, then give a gap, Yasin, give a gap, then Ahmed. Now someone else, say person who is maintaining the fines. So he will just need my enrollment number, my name, and maybe my hall of residence to send me an intimation that you have so much file due, and the book issued and the day issued, the issue date, and the return date. So whenever the return date is greater than issue date plus 7, there is a fine due. Say for instance, I'm allowed to keep the book for 7 days. So whenever it is, the return date is greater than the issue date plus 7, then say for instance, I've issued it on 1st and I've returned it on 12th. So return date would be 12 minus your issue date is 1 plus 7, 8. So there is 4 days overdue. I have kept it for 4 more days. So if I'm generating information, I will seek information like name, enrollment number, hall of residence, then issue date, return date, and fine due, which will be calculated at whatever the rate. Say 10 rupees is the fine due. For 4 days, 40 rupees is due. And then they will send me intimation that 40 rupees is due for you for this particular book. So I need certain details. So here I need the name. Now how will I define the name? This member who is keeping the file of fine could be defining it as first name, 10 spaces, middle name, 10 or 12 spaces, last name, 10 or 12 spaces. So they cannot be, we cannot share data because everybody is defining it differently. Like I mentioned yesterday also, address, somebody would be saying address and leave 40 spaces. Somebody else would say address as street, lane, city, state, district, state, and so on. So he would be defining, instead of giving 40 spaces, he would be defining it as street, 10 spaces, lane, 10 spaces, city, 10 spaces, district, 10 spaces, state, 10 spaces, and so on. So instead of giving 40 spaces, they would be breaking it up. So it will be very difficult to relate such information which are kept or structured in different ways. So there is lack of data sharing. Then poor security, because everybody is defining data. So everybody has ownership over data. Everybody has control over the management of the data. Everybody would be updating the data. So there are too many people who are involved in ownership. There are too many people is authorized to update the data, to bring about change in data, and therefore there is poor security and integrity. So little control of data, little management of data. Each define data differently. They manage and control it independently and update differently on different dates and time. Too many people having ownership, access, and control over data. Hence, poor security over data. Anybody can change. Anybody can tamper the data concern. Now, database management software system is a software which eliminates all the deficiencies that we are talking about: security, integrity, poor security, integrity, program data dependence, data duplication, and so on and so forth. So it is a software that permit an organization to centralize data. So whenever I define data, I will be defining it once and manage them efficiently, and also provide access to the stored data by application program. So you have all the data defined once. So it is name, it is being defined either as name 30 spaces or as first name, middle name, last name 10 spaces, age 2 spaces, enrollment number say 6 spaces, fine as 2 spaces, issue date as say 2 spaces. So there will be defined ones, structured ones. They'll centralize data, manage them efficiently, and provide access to stored data by application program. So you have different application program, member file, member program, you have fine program, you have training program, whatever the programs might be. So all these would be based on the data that I have defined once. So it's an that permit an organization to centralize data, manage them efficiently, and also provide access to stored data by application program. Now, this database management system has three components: data definition language, data manipulation language, and data dictionary. Now, data definition language is a formal language used by programmers to specify the structure and content of the data. Structure means whether its name is defined as F name, M name, L name, and 10, or it is defined as name with 30 spaces. What is the structure? And what does it contain? Okay, it is going to contain what elements, right? Age. So it is pick X2. So pick uh, 9 2. So 9 is indicative of a number. So what does it define? It defines 9 means 2 spaces I'm giving to it. Now, data manipulation language is a specialized language for manipulating data, and we make use of structured query language. And we use syntax like find employee for experiences greater than 3. So it will search through all the data and trace those employees who have an experience of more than 3 years. Find warehouse for floor is equal to 3. So it will search through all the warehouses and identify those warehouses, list those warehouses where the number of floor is more than 3, is 3. So this is data manipulation language, and the third component is data dictionary. This defines data elements and data characteristics, means whether it is a numerical or whether it is a alphabetic characteristics. So it defines data elements and data characteristics, that is whether it's numerical or alphabetic or alphanumerical, such as usage, physical representation, ownership, authorization, and security. Ownership means who can define the data, who says whether it's name going to be name with 30 spaces or it's going to be first name, middle name, last name. Authorization means who can bring about change in the data, and who all can access the data. Security means who all can access the data. So everybody is not allowed to access all the data. So somebody in a library who's running the find program, who's generating the find program, he can access only information about uh, member name, member enrollment number. Rest of it is generated by him. So it is issue date which is generated by him, return date which is generated by him, fine which is generated by him. So it allows different people to have access to certain amount of data. In a library, who is generating the fine for different members, he will be able to access only information like the name, say enrollment number, halls of residence, because he has to intimate to that candidate to pay a fee, and the rest like issue date, return date, fine amount is generated by him. So data dictionary defines data elements, data characteristics, that is, it is numerical, alphabetic or alphanumeric, and also defines the usage, physical representation, ownership, authorization, and security. Ownership means who can define the data. Authorization means who can update or bring about change in the data. Security means who can access the data by making use of passwords and data views. So these are the three components: data definition, data manipulation language, data definition language, and data dictionary. Now it enables, database management system enables you to remove all the deficiencies that was there in the filing system, like because of centralized management of data, data redundancy and inconsistency gets reduced, data confusion gets eliminated, program data dependence is reduced. It is no more there because you're defining data once, and every application has to refer to that central definition of data. So through central management of data, central definition of data, data redundancy, data inconsistency get reduced because you are defining it only once. Data confusion or data repetition gets reduced. Program data dependence is no more there because we're defining the data once, and every application program has to access data from there. Then flexibility is enhanced because now the files are related, and we can they're defined once and they get related, and we can answer to any ad hoc query which was not there. Centralized updation is there, so when we update data, it gets updated once in that central pool of data, and everybody sees that updated data. Concurrent access, data access by multiple users. So since data is no more program data dependent, so we have to access data from the central pool. So concurrent means there are multiple users who can access data at the same point of time. Data security and integrity is also maintained. Central management of data, because all data elements get defined once and at one place. Whether name is F name, M name, L name, it is done once and for all. All program access this definition only. So whether it's member file, employee file, whosoever is a fine program, whosoever is accessing data, they will access the same definition. All program access this definition, whether it's library member, library fine, all of them access this central pool of data. Data redundancy and inconsistency gets reduced because all data elements get defined once at one place. Therefore, data redundancy, inconsistency is reduced. Data confusion is also eliminated. Also, program data dependence is no more there. Earlier, for every program, the data needed to be defined. Now, this does not take place. As such, program data dependence get reduced. Centralized updation is there, where one person who's authorized to update the data. So if there was a change in address, that change in address gets incorporated once, and everybody can see the change in address. Change in data is done once, and all access this change. If any address is changed, it is changed at the central place. Flexibility is enhanced. Now we can answer to ad hoc query. Data sharing is there. Same data is shared. Everybody seeing the same data. Flexibility is therefore enhanced as one can answer to ad hoc query. Concurrent data access by multiple users. Many users access the same data. One may access the data. One may be updating the data. But through lock-in mechanism, your working is not affected. It protects simultaneous updates. So somebody is updating the data, but through lock-in mechanism, your work is not affected. Then security and integrity is maintained once defined by owner. So the same person who can define the data. It is clear who can change the data. It is clear who is authorized to change the data. It is clear as to who can access the database through data views and passwords. So somebody who is generating the fine for a library, he can access only the name, enrollment number, hall of residence, and he cannot take other information from there, right? And the rest of the information he generates on his own. So data security and integrity is maintained. So this was traditional filing system, the deficiencies it has: data integrity and security, no data integrity and security, no simultaneous updation, no ad hoc query, therefore no flexibility, program data dependence, data redundancy and duplication. All these things are removed by database management system. Now, what's a data warehouse? Data warehouse is a storage of data. In simple words, we can say it is a store of data. Data warehouse is a uh, data warehouse is a store of data, right? So it stores data, all the data which has been generated in your organization from various sources. So it stores data that have been extracted from various sources. Operational data, like a transaction or sale taking place, external data and other databases. It's a central source of data that have been cleaned, transformed and cataloged for use by manager. So we ensure in what form that we take the data. Then the process of acquisition of data, when we acquire data, uses means consolidating data. We are getting data from various sources, filtering unwanted data. So some data is really not required, so we don't record it. Correcting incorrect data, aggregating data from various sources, and converting data into a new data. All this is stored in data warehouse, or we call it EDW. We call it a EDW, Enterprise Data Warehouse. Now this EDW holds data from every source. So you have to waste time in searching for a specific piece of data. Therefore, we divide this data warehouse into smaller data marts. So data mart is nothing but is a subset of a data warehouse. So enterprise data warehouse or EDW holds data from various sources, operational, external, other source of internal organizational transactions, everything. So there are too much information held here. So you'll have to sift through data when you're searching for a certain piece of information, a certain element of data. So what we do is we divide this data warehouse into smaller data marts. So data mart is nothing, it's a subset of a data warehouse which contains data about specific purpose, about specific function, or about specific process, or about specific process. Now, so data warehouse is a subset of data which holds data relating to a functional area, data related to HR, data related to production, or data related to inventory management. Inventory, so a single process. It could refer to data of a function, of a process, of a function, or even an individual process. What is data mining? Data mining basically extracts information from the data warehouse to identify patterns and trends which will help the manager to take decision. So data in the data warehouse is analyzed to identify hidden patterns and trends in business activities. It uses advanced pattern recognition algorithms, mathematical techniques and statistical techniques to find trends in data. Okay, so it is they try to identify hidden patterns and trends in various business activities, and it makes use of advanced pattern recognition algorithms, mathematical techniques, statistical techniques to give you valuable insights to the manager. Now, predictive analysis is a part of it, is an area of data mining that deal with extracting information from data and using it to predict trends and behavior pattern used in actuarial science. So it is used in BFSI. BFSI is what? Banking, financial services, FS is financial services, I is insurance companies. It is extensively used in BFSI segment, sector. B is banking, FS is financial services, I is insurance sector. Like it is used in travel sector. What is the travel package that can offer? We know a family goes for a tour every summer. So what is the package that we offer to them? Healthcare, say healthcare. We take an example of healthcare at home or Pochia. What they do is they get data of customers from hospitals and ask them, like, you have cancer. Now you have to come for treatment every week to the hospital. So do you want this treatment delivered at home? Do you want this service delivered at home? Okay. So healthcare, you can have various, you can analyze the data to give them valuable offering. Telecom services, retail sector, pharma sector, everybody is using this these days. So data mining is a technique where we try to identify hidden patterns and trends and give useful insight about customers' behavior. It is used in various sector: banking, financial services, and insurance, travel, healthcare, telecom, retail, pharma. Every sector it is being used. Now, what are the data mining tasks? How do they accomplish this? How do they accomplish this particular function? How do they accomplish this particular function? So they do through classification, estimation, clustering, and association rule learning. Let's take the first classification. It creates predetermined classes. So it consists of examining features of newly presented objects and assigning it to a predefined class. So we create classes. Classification of credit applications. So we classify them as high risk, medium risk, low risk, depending upon maybe the time of the value asked, the loan asked for, and the time period. We can define them categorize them into high risk, medium risk, low risk. Patients with different range of blood pressure, they can be defined into high risk patients, low risk patient, medium risk patient. So we have predefined classes created, and then depending upon the data element that we get, we put it as this loan is a high risk loan or it's a low risk loan. So should we grant loan or not? Okay, similarly, patients can be categorized as high risk, low risk, and medium risk. Now, estimation. Given an input data, we have one data. On the basis of that input data, we make an estimate of a unknown variable. So one is a known variable, which is, we call it an input data. On the basis of it, we make an estimate, we make an assessment of an unknown variable. So the known variable is say the number of vehicles that a person has, and we try to relate it as to how much must be the income of the family. So given an input into data, we use estimation to come up with a value for some unknown variable. So unknown variable was income of the family, known variable was number of vehicles. So depending upon how many vehicles he has, we try to estimate what will be the total income of the family. Depending upon the spending habit, every time that he comes, he spends 10 to 12,000 or 20,000 per visit to my outlet. So what might be his income of the salary? What might be the income of the family? So given an input data, we use estimation to come up with a value of some unknown continuous variable. We make estimation of household income of family from data of number of vehicles, from data of spending habits per shopping visit. So how much you spend per shopping visit is your known variable. We make an unknown variable is household income. Number of vehicles, the gentleman has his known variable. Unknown variable is the household income. Now clustering. Clustering is the task of segmenting a diverse group into a number of similar subgroups. Here again, there is no predefined class. We go through the data elements and put different classes. These subgroups form the clusters. So we call it clustering. So it's the task of segmenting a diverse group from a number of similar subgroups. These form clusters. These subgroups become individual clusters. So there were no predefined class. We just run through. So students in a hall, we can put them into different regions. They belong to the northern region, southern region, eastern region, and western region. Students from different age groups can form clusters. The students from different regions can form clusters. Students from different courses can form clusters, right? And the last is association rule learning. It's a rule that implies a certain association relationship among a set of objects, such as occur together or one implies the other. Okay, it can occur together or one can imply the other. Say 30% of farmers that grow wheat also grow pulses. So those farmers who are growing wheat will also grow pulse. So 2% of all farmers grow both. So 30% is the confidence of the rule, 2% is the support of the rule. So 30% of farmers who grow wheat also grow pulses. 2% of farmers grow both. They grow wheat also, pulses also. 30% is the confidence of the rule and 2% is the support of the rule. So these are the four tasks where clustering, the four tasks were classification, estimation, clustering, and association rule learning. Now coming to application, data mining has various applications. I've referred to the tasks, how we do it, how do we mine data. Now it has n number of applications from different fields. Let us just discuss some of them. Customer profiling means we create a profile of the customer, which we have discussed in CRM earlier also. What is the name of the customer, items does he purchase, what is the total basket of items that he purchased, how frequently he visits me, how much does he spend, what time does he visit my outlet, and so on and so forth. So we try to therefore make a better offer to the customer once we have studied his profile. So we try to convert him into a, we create customer profiling in order to convert him to a loyal customer, like a frequent flyer program of the airlines. Then repurchase, if we convert him into a loyal customer, he will repurchase rather than deflect. We also make him the right offer, and we also do not make costly mistakes. Like a person who's willing to, who loves to travel and he tours every summer, instead of giving him a pack, and he is willing to spend say 30 to 40,000 per summer for a tour, I go and offer him a tour package of 3 to 4 lakhs of rupees. So that is a big mistake. He will feel humiliated and never come to me again. So we also avoid costly mistakes. So loyal customer, we try to convert, we create customer profile to convert him into a loyal customer, um, like a frequent flyer program of the airlines. We try to ensure that he repurchases from us rather than deflect. We make the right offer to him. We avoid costly mistakes, like offer travel package of 2 or 4 lakhs of 3 lakhs of rupees to one who is willing to spend 30 to 40,000 per visit. Now, customer segmentation according to income. We segment the customer according to income, according to spending habit, according to purchase pattern, uh, payment pattern. We classify them into different groups. Market basket analysis. What is the co-occurrence relationship that we discussed right now? In grocery chain, if a person comes and buys X group of items, he's more likely to buy Y groups of items. So there's a relationship between X and Y. So if I go and buy rice, wheat, I'm likely to buy sugar and oil also. If I go and buy a lot of snack items, I'm likely to buy soft drinks along with it. So this is market basket analysis. So the retailer tries to put these items together close by. And if he's offering a discount, he offers discount on snacks and he offers discount on the soft drink as well. He offers discount on rice and wheat. He offers discount on sugar and oil as well. Then cross sell, sell a group of items together. So we place them nearby. We put the similar discount on these group of items. Customer attrition, better profiling leads to better, it helps to control customer attrition. They do not deflect. Quality, we can use them for better management of quality. Through root cause analysis, where is the problem? We try to go back to the problem, identify the problem. It is used for risk analysis by mortgage companies. It is used for fraud detection. How? Like credit card companies, they see that I'm withdrawing 2 to 3,000 per withdrawal. Suddenly, I start withdrawing 30 to 40,000 at a time. So then there is a query. If I'm issuing a check of 2 to 3,000 every day, say every weekend, suddenly I'm issuing 4 lakhs. So they would ring up and ask, "Is this your check? Have you given it to such a gentleman?" So this is used for fraud detection. Then delinquency tracking means by studying payment pattern, identify customer who is likely to default payment. So he was a loan, he repaid me, he was repaying every month EMI, he was giving me the equated monthly installment. EMI is your equated monthly installment. So he was paying back the EMI in January, February, March he did not pay. April, May he paid, June he did not pay. July he paid, August, September he did not pay. So it helps me in identifying customers who are likely to default in future. It is used by retail for better assessment of demand and supply. So there are a number of uses, data mining applications that can be put to use. So we have discussed that they are used in pharma, in healthcare, in retail, in BFSI, so many different segments. Now we have also discussed as to where do we use them. We use for customer profiling, for customer segmentation, for market basket analysis, for cross selling, for customer attrition, for quality control, for risk analysis, for fraud detection, for delinquency tracking, and also used by retail for uh, uh, demand supply assessment. Now, text mining. There are two other mining. One is text mining, and the other is web mining. What is text mining? Text mining. Now, let us say when we have data, there are two kinds of data. One is a structured data, and one is unstructured data. Structured data is created from events like employee joining the organization. So we have his name, his age, experience, department he's joined, everything clearly created. Purchase transaction. So we know what is the item purchased by me, or sale transaction. What is the item I sold? How much quantity I sold? The price at which I sold? Retail outlet from which the took place. This is structured data. Unstructured data has no distinct form. It can be voice, it can be tweet, it can be anything. But this unstructured data offer unique insight into customer behavior and attitude. It tells us a lot about how customer behaves. What is the attitude of the customer? And this mostly they form in uh, unstructured data, mostly in the form of text. They have 80% useful information. So structured data is there. That is intentionally created, like a purchase transaction or a sales. Which item sold, price at which sold, quantity sold, which retail outlet sold, which customer bought. They are structured events. They're created from events. Unstructured data has no distinct form, but they offer unique insight into customer behavior and his attitude. And 80% of this unstructured data hold valuable information from us, like your email that I received. If I analyze it, I can identify the tone, the memo, the report, the blog, the tweet. If we analyze it, we'll get a lot of information about the customer sentiments. It is also called sentiment analysis. So we get a lot of information about the customer sentiment. We get a lot of information about the customer sentiment. It is also called sentiment analysis. Uh, so text mining tools are used in order to analyze this information, analyze this data, text data, extract key elements from large unstructured data sets. We try to identify customer voices which are used to express their feedback. So he was unhappy with the travel in Indigo, so he puts on a blog. It was really, the air hostess doesn't come. They are not well dressed. They are very impolite. They are rude. So this is a complaining voice. Or you're very happy after a after a flight. So you're very elated. So text mining tools help to analyze this data, extract key elements from large unstructured data sets, identify customer voices used to express their feedback, elated or complaining, negative voice, positive voice, conditional voice, that is controlled voice. It helps to identify key events like, well, does the customer intend to buy or he intends to leave. So we use text mining tools which analyze this data, huge amount of data, to identify customer sentiments, customer voice used, which could be complaining, elated, negative voice, positive voice, and then we can identify whether the customer intends to buy or whether the customer intends to leave. The other is, so if we have put in a blog and we say, okay, happy, so you come to know that the customer is happy, he will do business with us again. If he is unhappy, we try to resort to remove his complaint. If you remember, we discussed in CRM that 70% of the customers are willing to do business with us again in case we are able to remove his discontentment, in case we are able to satisfy or remove his discontentment. So that is text mining. It holds 80% of the unstructured data, holds valuable information for us, and therefore we should try to identify the customer sentiment, whether it's a positive voice, negative voice, conditional voice, and we try to identify whether he has an intent to purchase or intent to leave. Now, web mining is also another source of information. It's a source of valuable information. The web is another rich source of valuable information, which can be mined for pattern, trends, insights into customer behavior. Now, web mining is the discovery and analysis of useful pattern and information from the www, from the World Wide Web, and this is called web mining. Web mining is a discovery of an analysis of useful pattern and information from the World Wide Web, and this is called web mining. Business turn to web mining to help understand customer behavior or evaluate effectiveness of a particular website or quantify success of a marketing campaign. So your website is so cluttered, a person does not want to surf through and search through your product. So effectiveness of a particular website, you have created a website, whether it was effective or not. Now, web mining looks for patterns in data through content. How does it do so? Through content mining, structure mining, and usage mining. So these are the three methods that we use. Content mining it's a process of extracting knowledge from the contents of a web page which may include text, image, audio, video. We try to collect information from the web page, which might be text, image, audio, video. Structure mining extracts useful information from the links embedded in the web documents. So in the web documents, there are links associated. Links pointing to a document indicates the popularity of the document that has been served by customer. Links coming out of the document indicates the richness or the variety of topics covered. And lastly is usage mining. It examines user interaction data recorded by a web server. Whenever requests for a website resources are recorded. The usage data records the behavior when the user browses or makes transaction on the website. So how long does he stay on each page? So it records his behavior when the user browses or make transactions on the website, and collect the data. It collects them, compiles them in a server log. So it examines user interaction data recorded by a web browser whenever requests for a website resources are recorded. The usage data records the user behavior when the user browses or makes transaction on the website, and puts them all in a server log. It helps find value of a customer. It helps find cross marketing strategy. It helps determine the effectiveness of a promotional campaign. So that is all. So initially we discussed traditional filing system and its demerits. Then we discussed a database management system, which centralizes data and enables you to efficiently manage the data and use the data by making use of application program. It has three components: data dictionary, data definition language, data manipulation language. Then we have a data warehouse, which is a enterprise data warehouse which stores data which has been compiled from various sources. Now it is huge. Therefore, it will take time to sift through data. So we break that data warehouse into smaller data marts. Mart is a subset of data which holds information about a specific function or a specific process Now this data is that we hold in data warehouse is mined. There are 4 tasks that we use: clustering, classification, association, rule learning, and as the various tasks. And then classification, clustering, association, rule learning. Then we have discussed the data mining application, like customer profiling, customer segmentation, market basket analysis, quality control, delinquency tracking, and so on and so forth. And finally, we have also taken into account what is the concept of text mining and the concept of web mining, which is extensively being used today. Text mining, we first need to know there is structured and unstructured information. So in unstructured information also hold valuable information. 80% of the unstructured information has value, and therefore we use text mining tools in order to elicit information from here, which could be image, blog, tweet. We try to analyze customer sentiments and his intent to buy or leave. Web mining is another rich source, and the 3 methods that we use is content mining, structure mining, and usage mining. With that, we are over with database management system. Any query any student has can please ask.
Now, what is the difference between confidence and support in data
What
mining?
is the
Example. Ma'am, difference between the confidence and support. That example that you
okay?
gave about the farmer.
Let me go back to it. I think classification, where we have predefined classes and we put them
Yes, ma'am, the
into the
fourth
different
part, the
classes.
association rule
Yeah, I'm
learning.
coming to it. Estimation is, we know one known variable. We try to make an estimate of an unknown variable. And estimation, okay. We make an classification. We put them into different classes. There is no predefined class depending upon the kind of data that we get. We put them into different class. Then we have estimation, one known variable and unknown variable, clustering. Okay, we have done. And lastly, association rule. Yes, rule learning.
Yes, ma'am.
30% of farmers that grow wheat also grow pulses. So, and 30% of farmers that grow wheat also grow pulses. It says that of all the farmers, there is a probability that 30% of farmers who will grow wheat will also grow pulse. We can use the same in case of a shop also. 30% of people who come to buy, say, wheat and rice will also buy sugar and oil. So we make this is a probability. Now 2% of farmers grow both. So there is a small 2% of farmers who will grow both wheat as well as pulses. 30% is confidence, it tells you the probability. 2% is support of the rule. 2% says that this does exist. So 30% is the probability that of 100, 30% of those farmers who grow wheat will grow pulses. It's a probability. But 2% is support of the rule, means it indicates that yes, 2% are doing so. 30% is the probability. So the probability can vary. It can be 28 or it can be, for 34. So it is a probability of estimation. But 2% are doing so. Like we say, 30% of the people who buy wheat and rice will also buy oil and sugar, and 5% are doing both, which means that 30% there's a probability that those who come to buy wheat and rice will also buy sugar and oil, but 5% is the 5% is the support, which says that 5% of people are actually doing so. So that is confidence of the rule, that is proved. So this is
Yes, ma'am.
association rule learning, where we try to estimate. It's a probability. 30% is a probability, right? Those who come to buy electronic items will also buy, electronic gadgets or a mobile. They will also buy electronic gadgets. So that's a probability. 10% of the people might do so. 2% of says that they do both, means that is a proof that 2% are following this or they're adhering to this. 30% is the probability. 2% is a proof that they are doing it. Am I clear? So we call that
Yes, ma'am.
confidence, and the other is a support, because it is verified that 2% are actually doing so. Is it clear? Now we are over with your
Yes, ma'am.
context of database management system. I think we have a class tomorrow, and we will go through the next topic in tomorrow's class. And be prepared for Saturday. Any query you have during for the Saturday, you can send me on WhatsApp. So we can call it a day if nobody else has a query.
Yes, ma'am.